8:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Romesh Piris, read by Soundithavam. The President pays homage to the temple of the sacred Chutrilek and calls on the Mahanayaka and Anunayaka Theras. The Mayor of Colombo confirms receipt of 10,000 doses of Covishield vaccines to be administered to residents of the Colombo municipality limits. The Gampaha district recorded the highest number of coronavirus cases yesterday. The National Transport Medical Institute is to commence its services. The number of buses and train journeys increased within provinces from tomorrow. The Department of Prisons says inmates who engage in protests damaging prison property will not be recommended for clemency. In international news, Australia, Sydney and Darwin begin COVID-19 lockdowns. In sports cricket, Indian skipper Mithali Raj epitomizes India's troubles with a painstaking run rate in the first ODI in Bristol. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa paid homage to the sacred Chutrilek at the historic Dalada Maligava in Kandy and obtained blessings yesterday. The President was warmly welcomed by the custodian of the temple of the sacred Chutrilek, Devadna Nilame Nilanka Dalla. The President called on the Chief Prelate of the Malvathu chapter, Most Venerable Tibbatuwave Sri Sumangala Nayaka Thera, the Anunayaka Thera of the Malvathu chapter, Most Venerable Dimbul Kumure Vimaladharma Nayaka Thera, and the Anunayaka Thera of the Malvathu chapter, Most Venerable Niyangoda Vijitasiri Thera. The President inquired into their well-being and briefed the Mahanayaka and the Anunayaka Theras regarding the current political situation of the country as well as regarding the social and economic developments in the country. The Mayor of Colombo, Rosie Senanayaka, says 10,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca Covishield vaccine has been handed over by the Director General of Health Services in order to administer the second dose to the residents of Colombo. The Mayor said, accordingly, senior citizens above the age of 70 will be provided the vaccine from tomorrow. The Mayor said around 200,000 doses have been administered to the public residing within the Colombo municipality limits, while 90,000 doses of the Sinopharm vaccine and its second dose have also been administered. She noted 109,000 doses of the Covishield vaccine have been administered thus far. The Mayor further stated senior citizens will be notified on the date, time and venue of the vaccinations through an SMS, while citizens who do not have access to text messages will be informed by a visit to their homes. The Gampaha district recorded the highest number of coronavirus cases within the last 24 hours, with 407 positive tests. A majority of cases, 41, were identified from Minuangoda, 39 in Nitambua and Katunayaka. The number of COVID-19 cases confirmed in the country has risen to 252,996. The Department of Government Information said 1,245 persons tested positive for the virus thus far today. Accordingly, 31,136 persons are currently receiving treatment for the coronavirus at several facilities across the country. Earlier today, 2,158 COVID-19 patients were discharged from hospitals, increasing total recoveries to 218,998. Meanwhile, the Director General of Health Services has confirmed 39 COVID-19 deaths yesterday. Accordingly, the total number of COVID-19 deaths in the country has increased to 2,944. The National Transport Medical Institute is set to commence its services from tomorrow onwards. The NTMI, issuing a press release, stated that services will only be available for those who have already made appointments through e-channeling. However, the release further read, the branches of Verahera, Polonnaruwa, Nuwara and Kalutara will not be in operation. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The number of buses and train journeys allowed within provinces will be increased from tomorrow. The State Minister of Bus Services, Dilum Amunugama, said permission has not been granted for interprovincial travel as instructed by the COVID-19 Prevention Task Force. Meanwhile, the Sri Lanka Railways said they decided to increase train journeys both in the morning and the evening. The Railways Deputy General Manager Gamini Senivaratna said they plan to increase the number of trains commuting to 28, in turn increasing total train journeys to 56. The Director General of Health Services has issued a circular including new quarantine regulations for persons travelling to Sri Lanka from overseas. Accordingly, it is mandatory that Sri Lankan citizens produce a negative PCR test taken 96 hours prior to arriving in the island or a rapid antigen test taken 48 hours before arrival. Foreigners and dual citizens must produce a negative PCR test result taken 96 hours prior to landing in the country. The card holding information pertaining to COVID-19 vaccinations received by the individual should be produced only in the English language. Persons arriving from overseas will be required to undergo PCR test on the first day of arrival, while they will be subjected to a 14-day quarantine period at a hotel or a quarantine centre. The new circular issued by the Director General of Health Services stated that fully vaccinated Sri Lankans or dual citizens travelling from overseas who have also completed the 14-day quarantine period should notify the health services on the matter. That's local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The Prisons Commission Administration, Chandana Ekanayaka, says the Department of Prisons decided that any inmate who engages in protests damaging prison property will not be recommended for pardons. The hunger strike launched by the death row inmates at the Valikada and Mahara prisons continued for the third day today. The Valikada prison inmates who are on death row staged a protest on the roof of the chapel ward last afternoon. They demanded a 4-year review of their death sentence and commutation of the sentence to 20 years in prison. That came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, the Dambula Economics Centre will be closed tomorrow. The Economics Centre will be closed as the employees at the centre will be given the second dose of the COVID vaccine. The Dambula Economics Centre will be reopened on the 29th of June and came to you in Watchlight. On to a bulletin of world news in the headlines. Australia, Sydney and Darwin begin COVID-19 lockdowns. Singapore's surprising new plan to live with COVID revealed. China releases videos of its Zhurong Mars rover. Sydney, Australia's largest city, and Darwin have begun a 2-week lockdown as a cluster of cases of the highly infectious coronavirus Delta variant rose to 110. Restaurants, bars and cafes were shut today as stay-at-home orders were extended across Sydney. The restrictions require people to stay home for at least 14 days, only venturing out to buy essential goods, obtain medical care, exercise, go to school, or if they are unable to work from home. A country that has been one of the world's most successful at combating COVID-19 has announced it will soon fundamentally change how it manages the pandemic. The city-state of Singapore has stated COVID will be treated like other endemic diseases such as flu. There will be no goals of zero transmission. Quarantine will be dumped for travellers and close contacts of cases will not have to isolate. It also plans to no longer announce daily case numbers. Senior Singaporean ministers have said it is the new normal of living with COVID. China's space agency has released videos of its Zhurong rover trundling across the surface of Mars. The pictures were acquired by a wireless camera that the robot had placed on the ground. The new media release also includes sequences from Zhurong's landing in May, showing the deployment of its parachute system and the moment of touchdown. The 6-wheel robot is investigating a region known as Utopia Planitia. Back to the headlines of the world news. Australia, Sydney and Darwin begin COVID-19 lockdowns. Singapore's surprising new plan to live with COVID revealed. And China releases videos of its Zhurong Mars rover. That concludes this bulletin of world news, and on to development news. The Hambantota International Port Group has partnered with Shenzhen Xingji Group to set up a plug-and-play park-in-park manufacturing facility within the port's industrial zone. The concept is a fully-fledged standalone industrial facility with some very unique features set to operate within the Hambantota International Port's industrial zone. The signing of the joint venture agreement between the Xingji Group and HIPG took place at the Hambantota Maritime Centre, with key officials of both organisations in attendance. That's development news, and looking at sports news, it's cricket. India struggled to accelerate against dominant England in the first of the 3 ODIs at Bristol in England. India skipper Mithali Raj epitomised India's troubles with a painstaking 72 of 108 balls. Earlier, England elected to field with debuts for the hosts Sophia Dunkley and India's Shafali Verma. A short while ago, India completed their allotted 50 overs with 201 runs for the loss of 8 wickets. England resumed their innings a short while ago and were 82 runs after 15 overs, losing a wicket. Meanwhile, in tennis, 4-time Olympic gold medalist Serena Williams has confirmed she will not play in this summer's delayed Tokyo Games. The 39-year-old American, who made her Games debut in Sydney in 2000, made the announcement in a pre-Wimbledon media conference earlier today. That's sports news, business news to follow.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
Nestle announced that it has switched to paper straws for its popular ready-to-drink variant. This makes it the first RTD beverage in Sri Lanka to offer consumers a more sustainable alternative to plastic straws. The landmark move will enable the company to eliminate 90 million plastic straws a year and makes the all-new Milo packaging 100% recyclable. That's business news. Economic news up next.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
On to economic news. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa recently met with the Omani investors delegation from the Shamuk Investment and Services, which is the investment arm of Madain of the public establishment for industrial estates of the Sultanate of Oman at Temple Trees. The Prime Minister and the Omani delegation discussed ways and means to enhance economic cooperation between Sri Lanka and Oman, including investment opportunities in particular. The Sri Lankan Embassy in Oman, jointly with the Embassy of Oman in Sri Lanka, organised the above visit of the Omani investors under the investment bubble concept. That's economic news.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue in partnership with the Ministry of Education introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
The Meteorological Department forecasts several spells of showers to occur in the western, Sabaragamu and northwestern provinces and in the Galle, Matara, Kandy and Nuwara districts. The Met Department further predicts showers or thundershowers to occur at a few places in the Uva province and in the Ampara, Batiklo and Mullaitivu districts in the evening or night.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue in partnership with the Ministry of Education introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
To conclude this bulletin of news, a recap of the headlines. The President pays homage to the temple of the sacred Chutrilek and calls on the Mahanayaka and the Anunayaka Theras. The Mayor of Colombo confirms receipt of 10,000 doses of Covishield vaccines to be administered to residents of the Colombo municipality limits. The Gampaha district recorded the highest number of coronavirus cases yesterday. The National Transport Medical Institute is set to commence its services. The number of buses and train journeys increased within provinces from tomorrow. The Department of Prisons says inmates who engage in protests damaging prison property will not be recommended for clemency. Australia, Sydney and Darwin begin COVID-19 lockdowns. And Indian skipper Mithali Raj epitomises India's troubles with a painstaking run rate in the first ODI in Bristol. That concludes tonight's news broadcast.